The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Debate number 3 last night, foreign policy moderated by Bob Schieffer. Incredible debate, ladies and gentlemen. President Obama in debate 3 made President Obama in debate 2 look like the President Obama from debate 1. What do you think, Lewis? Analyze my analysis. Evaluate my evaluation, please.
I think Obama clearly won the debate on style and on substance.
Oh, okay. Well, those are the two sides to it.
But I don't think it was a total bomb for Mitt Romney. Not a total bomb.
Okay. I think it was, but I think not enough people will realize it.
Right. I'm pretending to be everybody. Okay. I think he did have a few moments.
Lewis is every person.
I think he did have a few moments, and there was a lot of agreement between the two of them.
Well, let's get into that. What was the debate? There was no debate here. Mitt Romney agreed with President Obama on just about everything, and we'll go through that list one by one. His gripes with Obama were, well, in doing exactly what I would have done, President Obama wasn't forward-looking enough, although I can't identify any specific reasons why that lack of forward visibility was negative. But I would have been more forward-looking. Or, President Obama did do exactly what I would have done, but he didn't get enough points of view in making the decision to do exactly what I would have done, right? Essentially, I would have done the same thing. No difference. I couldn't identify almost any significant difference between what Romney would have done and what President Obama did, even congratulating Obama on many things.
Right. The debate was who would do it better.
Right.
That was the debate.
Who would do the same
thing better.
Not who would do it differently. Right. I started thinking, could the strategy from Romney be, wait a second, if I just say I would do the exact same thing, maybe I'll get the racist vote because people will say, well, if they're going to do the same thing, I'd much rather have the white guy than the black guy doing it. Maybe that was the strategy. I don't know.
That would be a strange strategy.
What was your read on the agreement, Natan?
Well, the Republican talking point that the Republican Party is masturbating to right now is that Romney thinks he's ahead. They think that they're going to win the election, and he already passed the so-called commander-in-chief bar in the first and second debates, and that all he needed to do was appear calm, collected, and that the agreement didn't matter. Now, I personally think that this is totally misguided.
Yeah.
And I don't think they actually think they're ahead because I'm assuming they have the data that we have, which shows that best case scenario, they're tied right now.
Right.
Or Obama has a slight lead. So I don't think that, I think they're trying to cover up the fact that it was kind of a soft performance.
Let's go through this piece by piece over there, Lewis, as you are very, very active. Let's start with Libya, why don't we?
Okay.
Libya. So on Libya, Mitt Romney says we can't kill our way out of this. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Do as the president's done. I congratulate him on taking out Osama bin Laden and going after the leadership in Al-Qaeda.
Right.
But we can't kill our way out of this mess. We're going to have to put in place a very comprehensive and robust strategy to help the world of Islam and other parts of the world reject this radical violent extremism, which is, it's certainly not on the run. It's certainly not hiding. This is a group that is now involved in 10 or 12 countries, and it presents an enormous threat to our friends, to the world, to America, long term, and we must have a...
So we need a plan, but we can't shoot our way out. That almost sounds like Mitt Romney wants diplomacy, but I thought diplomacy was bad. I thought Romney didn't want diplomacy. He wanted to be the guy who would actually take action, unlike Barack Obama, even though Barack Obama did take action, but the Republicans don't want to admit that. Very confusing for Mitt Romney. And he congratulates the president, too.
Yeah. There was, like we always say, nuance is bad. And there was a little too much of that from Romney. I think he probably confused...
His own voters.
His own voters, yeah.
President Obama did a great job of pointing out flip-flops right away. Mitt Romney started saying, listen, Arab scholars tell me. When I think of what Arab scholars are saying, I don't think of going to Mitt Romney to ask for an interpretation. I don't think of Mitt Romney as the best mouthpiece for what Arab scholars are saying. Maybe he's got binders full of Arab scholars as well as women. I don't really know. And then we really got into it when President Obama dinged Romney on the geopolitical foe thing, right? Saying, hold on a second, you said Russia was our biggest geopolitical foe, and the Cold War's been over for 20 years. Let's get to a little bit of that commentary from President Obama.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you recognize that Al-Qaeda is a threat, because a few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda, you said Russia. And the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back, because the Cold War has been over for 20 years. But, Governor, when it comes to our foreign policy. You seem to want to import the foreign policies of the 1980s, just like the social policies of the 1950s and the economic policies of the 1920s.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You know, we want women to be able to go home and make dinner for their husbands. What's wrong with that? Well, who cares if it's the 1950s? It's great.
Now, I don't think Mitt Romney saying that Russia is our biggest geopolitical foe.
No, well, he only said that literally.
Is the most insane thing he's ever said. Because
No, it's not. You're right. And that's a bad sign. If saying Russia is the #1 geopolitical foe is not the craziest thing you've said, we're in trouble.
This is just slightly nuanced. Geopolitical foe. He's not saying that it's the biggest threat to our national security.
Oh.
He's not saying it's the biggest threat to America. He's saying it's our biggest geopolitical foe.
So you agree with Romney on this?
I'm not saying that that's 100% true, but
Oh, okay.
they are definitely a geopolitical foe, and one that, I mean, it's an issue.
Well, certainly he doesn't want to talk about China, as we saw later in the debate, because he's so wrapped up with China.
I mean,
He'll mention any country to get the attention off of
I don't
China.
think it's a good idea to call China a foe at all at this point.
Syria. We get to Syria, and it's incredible. We started getting the sense with Syria that President Obama was doing exactly what Mitt Romney would have done, like on many other issues. Romney is basically saying, I would do what President Obama said. Mitt said, we should have a leadership role in Syria, but not involving the military. And there's really no ideas I have about what we would do differently. It's just that I would do it better, and we would have a leadership position, but somehow we would achieve that leadership position without involving the military. Okay. Now then, this was really funny. To understand foreign policy, I think at a bare minimum, you need to understand geography. And Mitt Romney said Syria is Iran's only ally in the Arab world. It's their route to the sea. Now let's take a look at this map here. You can see over here Iran in this kind of sweet potato-like color, and in the bright green you see Syria. Now explain to me, Lewis, how Syria is in any way Iran's route to the sea. So, for example, Iran could go south, right, and then they would get right into the sea there. You've got the Strait of Hormuz, of course, over which they have plenty of control. Or they could go directly north from Tehran into the Caspian Sea. Or if they do decide to go west, as Mitt Romney suggests, they would go first through either Iraq and then Syria, or they could actually go just through Turkey and get into the Mediterranean Sea or the Black Sea. Mitt Romney knows nothing about geography, does he?
Unless he was talking about just an ally that has access to the sea.
It's their only ally with access to the sea. Natan, isn't this really disturbing that Mitt Romney seems to have just no grasp over the material in the foreign policy debate?
That's true. He didn't seem to have a grasp of what was going on. However, he was kind of trying to create the impression that he is very familiar with the names of different leaders and countries in the same way that Bush did in the 2000 and 2004 debates.
Right.
Sort of that Gish Gallop thing where you just stream off a bunch of names and countries. He talked about Mali at the beginning in the first answer he gave. And
That's a hot button issue, guys.
Exactly. He was just trying to create that impression that, he's on top of it and he doesn't want you to fact check it.
Absolutely. So then we go to Egypt. On Egypt, Mitt also agrees with Obama. He supports what President Obama did. He just wishes that looking back, we had done it with a better vision of the future. I'm sold, guys. Let's get Obama out and Romney in, because Romney, let's face it, on Egypt, he would do the same thing. He would have just had a better vision of the future, and that really is a good reason to oust the incumbent, isn't it?
Actually, I don't even think he claimed that he would have had a better vision of the future.
He just wishes Obama had.
He says no one did. What he said was that nobody really expected that to happen.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm overstating Romney's difference on this.
Yeah,
Maybe there's really no
difference.
difference.
Almost just like a non-answer. This is just like whatever happened. I wish it happened better. And he literally said, I don't blame President Obama for this. He said, nobody realized that this would happen.
What a tantalizing debate. Incredible, the case that Mitt Romney is making for keeping Barack Obama in the White House. On America's role in the world, Mitt Romney went into this idea of strengthening the military. And I'm thinking to myself, we have the strongest military. In Germany, we've got 50 bases. How many does Mitt want? Does he want 60 bases? How much do we need to strengthen the military? And more so, the $2 trillion that Mitt Romney wants to put into the military is not even money the military is asking for. They're not even asking for it.
Right. There's no way to fix our debt if you want to give everyone tax cuts and increase military spending.
Sure there is. You just close the mortgage deduction loophole.
Right.
Mortgage interest deduction.
Right. You could pretty much eliminate every other government program we have except for entitlement, and it still wouldn't help. I mean, we have to cut military spending.
To give Bob Schieffer credit, he actually took that question and he transitioned into where's the money for the bigger military? And Mitt Romney started talking about, well, some things sound good or don't sound good, and then some things we can afford and we can't afford. He says Obamacare doesn't sound good. Incorrect. Once Obamacare policies fully take hold, you're not going to be able to get rid of them because they do sound good. They are budget negative, deficit negative, and it's going to be impossible. There's this window of opportunity now where if Mitt Romney is elected, maybe Obamacare can be blocked, not funded, overturned, whatever. But more military bases around the world, that sounds good. Mitt Romney talking about, well, listen, I ran the Olympics and balanced the budget. Yeah, with the federal bailout, you balance the budget on the Olympics. And then maybe the biggest zinger of the night, Mitt Romney saying we have less, what did he say? We have less ships now than we did in 1916. And President Obama responding with what now is being considered the zinger of the night. Take a look.
I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed. We have these things called aircraft carriers where planes land on them. We have these ships that go underwater, nuclear submarines. And so the question is not a game of battleship where we're counting ships. It's what are our capabilities? And so when
I think that was perfect, absolutely perfect. It was the right balance of critique with humor, but making it clear that Mitt Romney just has no idea what he's talking about. You're going to make decisions about today's military based on the equipment that was available in World War I, Mitt? That's what you're going to do? You shouldn't be president. What was he even doing in this race?
It's pretty silly to start saying what you want to do in terms of military spending and being that detailed about it.
Right.
When Obama is the one sitting down with the heads of the military deciding what needs to be done on a regular basis.
The other funny military thing, Natan, I don't know if you noticed this, is that Mitt Romney a couple of times said that military action really is the last resort for him. But he's asking for an increase to the military bigger than even what they are requesting. If it's the last resort, why do we need to completely increase the size of it and the cost?
Well, the Republican talking point for this is that by increasing military spending and, sending the message that we're going to increase our capabilities to the rest of the world, it will make us so intimidating that we won't have to go to war because we'll just intimidate the rest of the world.
That's always worked in the past.
Absolutely. No, I think it's definitely based on, good hard evidence.
Yeah, very good. I'm starting to think I don't really like the direction that Obama's taking this country, and I might vote for Romney.
There you go.
That's the funniest line when you hear that from voters. Okay, then we got to Iran. On Iran, President Obama says, I will not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Mitt Romney says, I will not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. So now, on Syria, Egypt, and Iran, Romney basically just agrees with Obama. So we heard this line from Mitt Romney time and time again. Iran is now 4 years closer to a nuclear weapon.
They still don't have one.
This is the funniest line. What's happened is President Obama has been the president for 4 years, and Iran has existed as a country for 4 years. Therefore, yes, they are 4 years closer to a nuclear weapon. Basically, Mitt Romney is criticizing Obama for the passing of time. He has a certain view that basically he's criticizing the space-time continuum. That's really what Mitt Romney is angry about here.
He's probably suggesting that if he were president, he would have, if he were president for the last 4 years, he somehow would have completely stopped
the passage of time.
Any nuclear capability, no centrifuges, nothing.
So we have the same position here. The differences between Romney and Obama on Iran is that Romney would file some symbolic indictments of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. That's what I gathered. That's the difference. Again, Syria, Egypt, Iran, basically the same. Great moment in the debate when they talked about the trips. President Obama talking about how, responding to Mitt Romney's claim that he skipped Israel. Of course, Mitt Romney was there acting like a complete fool and turning all European polls against him. But let's put that aside. Obama dropping the hammer on this one, saying, hey, listen, I went to Israel. I didn't take donors. I went as a candidate. I didn't take donors. I didn't do fundraisers. I went to see troops, and I went to the Holocaust Museum. For me, that was the line of the night.
Yeah, and Romney was onto something with that one, but Obama had the perfect response and just completely crushed him.
And then on that same question, Obama went into overdrive. He exposed 5 Romney flip-flops in one sentence. He drove home that Mitt Romney wouldn't even have gotten bin Laden, which people seem to be forgetting. If you want national security, why would you vote for the guy who wouldn't have gotten bin Laden? And at this point, Mitt Romney had flip-flop sweat all over his face because Obama was running a clinic on how to debate flip-floppers, and it went downhill from there. On Afghanistan, of course, we know that Mitt Romney he would have gotten bin Laden, but he wouldn't have moved heaven and earth, but this and that. It was nonsense. On the drones, which we disagree with President Obama's position on, Mitt agrees with it. So now we've got Syria, Egypt, Iran, drones. They agree. What's the point of this? What is the point of this? And then on the biggest future threat question, Mitt Romney talking about, again, he said this so many times, it's not government that makes businesses or the economy successful or that creates jobs. But he's been campaigning for months on he's going to create 12 million jobs. How is it that government isn't responsible for the economy or businesses or jobs, but you as president are going to do what Obama isn't going to do in creating jobs? Is anyone else hearing this?
I don't think in general, yeah, I mean, well, what is there to say about it? Yeah.
It's just nonsense. And then lastly, China. Mitt Romney wants a partnership with China. President Obama wants a partnership with China. They want the same things. Of course, we know that Mitt Romney wants to redirect attention away from China because of all of his investments there. Remember during the last debate on immigration, Mitt Romney saying, hey, look at me. My dad was born in Mexico. Yesterday, it was, hey, look at me. I was born in Detroit. Singing a very different tune about being the hardy American guy as opposed to the one that appeals to the immigrants.
Yeah, I really think it's a bad idea to appeal to agree with Obama if you're trying to appeal to your base, especially if you're Mitt Romney, knowing who the people who are voting for him. And you know what? He's been telling lies the whole time. Why not just lie about more stuff and make it seem like you don't agree with the president?
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least be slightly different.
And then in that last question, Mitt Romney also had a key line that I think is very telling. He said, I love teachers, but. Any line that starts with I love teachers, but is going to be a hard line to sell to many, many Americans. Don't you think, Natan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think at this point, people have a pretty good idea of who Mitt Romney is, and if there still are undecided voters, they're probably not going to change their minds based on this debate. But if they do, it's probably going to be in Obama's direction. The CBS, after debate poll showed that 53% of people thought Obama won the debate, and the rest were split between a tie and Romney winning. So I don't think this is going to hurt Obama. It may not hurt Romney, though.
All right, so bottom line, President Obama basically has been doing exactly what Mitt Romney would have done, and Mitt Romney doesn't seem to know anything about foreign policy, including the geography of the Middle East. That's what we learned.
We learned that Mitt Romney does not know how to debate at all, really. I mean, how could you have no concept that agreeing with the person you're running against on half the issues on the
6
debate,
of 8 issues?
You got to be kidding me.
On today's bonus show, we'll talk about, remember those controversial body scanners? They're being replaced, but with what? You'll want to hear that. Also, can young blood transfusions from younger members of your species reverse aging? DavidPakman.com/membership.
What's aging?
What's that?
What's aging?
Aging.
When you become Asian?
Give me a break. English is my second language. We'll take a break. Back with plenty more after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
If you do any shopping on Amazon.com, if you first click on the black banner at davidpakman.com to take you to Amazon before doing the shopping, you'll actually send 7% of your purchase to the David Pakman Show instead of sending all of it to Amazon.com. Great way to help the show. You can also become a David Pakman Show member, made possible in part by liberalbias.com. Liberal bias is found in some amazing places. Even single-celled organisms like yeast can be guilty of liberal bias, which is incredible. You can find out more about that at liberalbias.com. Think about that the next time you bake a loaf of that cinnamon raisin bread you make, Louis.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? I've never made a bread in my life.
Ansi Telfort. Ansi Telfort is today's David Pakman Show member of the day. It's great to have Ansi aboard, as well as every other David Pakman Show member. You're the reason we're on the air, so thank you very much. One quick final note on a kind of sidebar story. Remember earlier, was it either earlier this week or last week, that Tag Romney went on this local right-wing radio show, I think it was in North Carolina.
Last week, I believe.
Last week. And said he wanted to take a swing at the president. Well, we have a little bit of video, it's just 20 seconds or so, where they actually greet each other at on the stage after the debate. And Tag Romney, for people who are watching, does this thing where he does the multiple pats on the back to President Obama. And I see it as such a sign of, I don't know if it's conscious or not, but this idea that there's some level of dominance, right? I've met a lot of people, actually, who when they talk to me, they try to kind of like exert influence by doing a lot of kind of manly type touching, either patting me on the back or on the shoulder, kind of squeezing my arm or something in a way that it's not really warranted. It might be just nerves. It might be just the typical, he's trying to exert his dominance here, and if he wanted, he would be taking a swing. Very friendly overall, though. Take a look at this. And we have, and again, this is just video from after the debate. People very friendly. There's Obama leaning in and talking to Tag, and Tag 1. 2 pats on the back, 3, 4. 4 pats on the back. Does he come back in for another one? He doesn't. Okay. What do you think about that? I'm always just fascinated about body language at these high-level power broker exchanges that are somewhat off the cuff. I'm fascinated by looking at it.
I don't know. I think of the shake and the arm pat thing as just kind of like, oh, nice to see you. It's like, I don't know, like a nice guy type of thing.
Yeah, but he's not a nice guy, and it's not nice to see him. He wanted to deck the president after the last debate.
Well, I mean, does he actually want to deck the president? Probably not.
Well, he was certainly feeling resentful towards what happened.
One thing I did notice, I find this very, very strange.
Yeah.
When Obama hugged his wife, right?
Yeah.
He did the pat on the back thing.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like, hey, buddy, you know? It's not like, it wasn't like a warm hug.
Oh, interesting.
It was just weird, like pat on the back hug that
Maybe
you give to it like a friend.
I have the most awkward hugs sometimes. Actually, I've got a good tomorrow on the bonus show. Remind me to tell you an awkward greeting story that I had that is just incredible, and I'm completely embarrassed by it. But I'll tell it tomorrow on the bonus show. So that's that. Apparently, no hard feelings, at least in public. But of course, I would assume in private, Tag Romney probably wants to take a swing at Obama, and Obama probably doesn't really care too much about Tag Romney.
Why would he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The armed forces overwhelmingly support President Obama over Mitt Romney in donations, which is fascinating because Democrats are considered weak on national security, whereas President Obama has got Osama bin Laden captured and killed. He has put in motion the end of 2 wars, as close to, I mean, I don't know if it could have happened much faster, but in relatively short order, I guess we would say, and dominated a foreign policy debate. And the armed forces numbers are fascinating. President Obama has received over $500,000 in donations, over $200 each, from members of the military, Defense Department, etc. Mitt Romney, only about half of that, $287,000. What's fascinating is that Ron Paul, who was popular with the military all throughout his campaign, even though he hasn't really been in the race, some people would argue ever, but officially for several months now, still has received more money in donations from members of the military than Mitt Romney has. What does this tell us? I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. Yesterday we talked about Ann Romney comparing Mormon missions to serving in the military. Incredibly offensive to anyone who serves in the military. Should we be surprised about this incredible number we're seeing here?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's mostly because of Obama's record with regard to the military.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a pro-military president the whole way.
And it also, I think, is a factor that the military has a lot of minorities in it. And President Obama is a president which has appealed to, as we will talk about in the next segment with Jackson Katz, non-white voters.
Before Obama became president, I think if you were in the military, the choice was pretty clear. You vote for the veteran, someone who knows everything there is to know about the military, right?
Right, like John Kerry instead of George Bush. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. That didn't happen.
Hold on. And you probably never talked to a military person before that election who said they were voting for Obama, right?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Well, recently I haven't talked to one who says they're voting for Romney.
Right. No, I know. Recently, every member of the military I know is voting for President Obama.
Yeah.
No question about it. Quick story. Wisconsin Family Action has endorsed Wisconsin Republican State Representative Roger Rivard. Now, Roger Rivard, or Rivard, I'm not exactly sure how he pronounces his name, he is the guy who said, "Some girls rape so easy." Now, the Wisconsin Family Action Director, Julaine Appling, says that the organization is endorsing Rivard because of his stance on issues. Which issues, I don't know. And she also didn't address the rape remarks. State Rep Roger Rivard spoke to the Chetek Alert newspaper a few months ago about a 17-year-old who was charged with assault after having sex with his underage girlfriend on their high school campus. According to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, this is incredible, Rivard said his father had warned him that, quote, "some girls rape easy." He explained what that meant is they'd verbally consent and later accuse the man of rape. Doesn't sound like legitimate rape, according to the Todd Aiken definition. 3 hours later, Rivard issued a statement to the newspaper clarifying that sexual assault is a crime that unfortunately is misunderstood. Wow. Obviously, there's no better way to get an endorsement from a right-wing family values group than to say some girls rape easy. That's if I wanted to get an endorsement from these groups, the first thing I would say is talk about how easy some girls rape and throw in a comment about the legitimacy of rape.
Yeah, that's not a saying I've ever heard before.
Right.
And it's definitely very poor choice of words.
Listen, I don't know exactly what happens if the girl consents and then calls for rape, but you would think, not being a legitimate rape, that the entire legal system would shut down the allegations down.
In a perfect world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know if the system's in equilibrium, though.
No.
It may not happen. Let's take a break. Facebook.com/David Pakman Show. On the way to 10,000 Facebook likes. Please join us there. Jackson Katz next on masculinity in the presidential campaign.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Joining me is Jackson Katz. He is the author of Leading Men, Presidential Campaigns and the Politics of Manhood. I have a copy here. We've been talking about a lot of different aspects, Jackson, of this presidential race. And one that we kind of have a little bit of an edge into, at least tangentially, is that gender gap that exists, under which white men overwhelmingly support Mitt Romney and traditionally Republican candidates, and women as well as non-white men, minorities, etc., tend to skew towards the Democratic candidate. Now, you've written extensively about this issue of masculinity in presidential elections. Let's start with this election specifically. How are you seeing the masculinity and the portrayal of masculinity of these two candidates affecting this race?
Well, I think the most immediate and notable event was the first debate in Denver, when the discourse coming out of that debate was that Mitt Romney had basically bested Obama. Obama was passive. Obama was weak. And if you listen to the right-wing talk radio and right-wing discourse prior to that debate, all of the sort of energy on the right and the push that was trying to push Romney to come out and aggressively attack Obama. And Obama's performance played right into that narrative, which is that Obama's a weak leader. He's not strong. He apologizes for America. We need stronger, bolder leadership. So in a metaphorical sense, that debate was literally like a boxing match. And the progressive champion, if you will, Barack Obama, was revealed to be a weak, and the Republican, the conservative, was revealed to be strong. And I think people talk about it as a theatrical performance, but what I do in my book, Leading Men, as well as in much of my other work, is to say that it's not just a theatrical performance, it's actually a contest of manhood, a manhood contest. And how that plays out in the gender gap is obviously that men are much more responsive to those kind of performances of masculine power, and on and on from there.
If we think about it in kind of a primal way, looking back in human history, right? The idea of these masculine performances, as we call them, in great part was to scare off other men, but also to be attractive to women. And interestingly enough, in the political sense, it's not really appealing to women very much. This kind of pro-macho attitude from the right has actually turned off women. I'm wondering why that has been the case.
Well, it's a really good question. It's complicated because I think there's, there was some movement among women away from Obama after the first debate as well. And when we say women and we say men, I think we have to race this discussion because we're really talking about white men. Because, for example, men of color are much less likely to be influenced by these kinds of cultural messages than our white men, and that's true with white women and women of color as well. So it's important that we get specific, that we're talking really about white voters more so than we are talking about voters of color. But one thing, Dave, that I talk about in my book is that for decades now, it's not just this election cycle, for decades now, the Republican Party has been able to successfully market themselves as the party not only that represents white people in a certain way or opposes civil rights or resists civil rights, but as the party that is identified with strong men. It's the manly party. And they've been able to successfully at the same time feminize the Democratic Party in a way that, sending the message to voters that if you want to be identifying with a party that represents you and in a not just in a racialized way, but in a sort of gender identity way, then the Republican Party is your party. The Republican Party has successfully played identity politics with white masculinity for more than a generation. And I think the Democrats have only recently woken up to this part of the phenomenon.
What's interesting is that with changing demographics, I was just looking that by the 2016 election, the Republican idea of kind of having a strong reliance on the white male voter is not really, it's unlikely to continue working because of changing demographics, where close to 70% of the white vote is what the Republican candidate would need in 2016 in order to win election. So do you think that this is an idea, is this a paradigm that by the sheer nature of changing demographics is simply not going to work anymore? Or talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I do think that you're absolutely right, and I discussed this in Leading Men. There's no question that the shifting demographics are making the centrality of the white male vote less and less so with each year and with each election cycle. And the Republican Party and conservative movement more generally is going to have to figure out how to appeal to a more diverse, electorate, or they're just going to numerically be consigned to the ash heap of history. There's no question that the demographic shift is happening, but this election is still front and center. I think this election of Obama versus Romney, masculinity is still front and center as a part of the conversation. And one of the things that I talk about too is about how Mitt Romney has struggled to get the working class base of the Republican Party to believe that he's really authentically their representative. And even Newsweek magazine actually did a cover story about 6 weeks ago called Romney's Wimp Factor, which reprised Newsweek's cover story in 1988, which talked about George H.W. Bush's wimp factor. And I think some of this has to do with the aristocracy and wealth, and how wealth, even in the Republican Party, how wealth has been in a sense feminized, or at least there's a cultural and a class and economic, obviously, gap between the working class and middle class base of the Republican Party and the leadership, in this case, embodied in Mitt Romney. And so I think that's one of the reasons why Mitt Romney has tried to butch himself up, to try to become more masculine, to try to move to the right. And when we say move to the right, what we really mean is get more masculine.
Yeah. So well, let's talk about that specifically. I mean, with specific regard to this election, I'm curious if instead of thinking of the masculinity factor as a kind of plus minus, who is perceived as more masculine, let's talk a little bit about something you do, which is that there's actually just different visions of what masculinity and manhood are. On the left, right, because many people do, obviously millions of people believe that President Obama does represent a positive image of manhood and his own masculinity, but it's a very different type of masculinity. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, that's true. And in fact, I think you can be very strong and very powerful and be progressive and support gender equality and sexual orientation equality and gay marriage and a reduction in military spending and be strong. So I don't think it's one or the other. And I do think that Obama, in his personal style, has modeled a less aggressive kind of masculinity. Although critiques from his left, of course, are saying that this presentation in a public sense is covering for a continuation of George W. Bush's national security state, and the drone killings and all kinds of other policies pursued by Obama are not at all representing a new masculinity. They're actually, continuing some of the old militarism. However, in a personal style, Obama is very much looking for points of agreement. He's collaboration, connection, and that's traditionally been coded as a feminine style of leadership. And you see how he struggled with it. You see how he struggled with it when he's running up against the Republican Party that's dominated by its right wing, that doesn't want accommodations, doesn't want to work in a bipartisan way. So there's this tension between, yes, wanting to model a new kind of manhood, but how do you get things done politically in this environment with that style of leadership?
The book is Leading Men, Presidential Campaigns, and the Politics of Manhood. We've been speaking with Jackson Katz. The book is a fascinating read, both pre- and post-election. Looking forward to other elections as well. Jackson Katz, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, David.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Been getting a lot of questions about what is next for the David Pakman Show after the election. We have a lot of ideas in mind, but really what we need is to continue growing our membership support. We've got 10, 20, 30 great ideas about things we could do. Being able to do them is going to depend on membership support. So please consider, especially now that the political contributions are dying down, becoming a David Pakman Show member. Go to davidpakman.com/membership. We're talking about pennies a day, and membership really is how we can continue to grow and expand the show. Brian Mulligan is this bank executive who told police officers that he used bath salts, according to what police are saying. He was badly injured by 2 LAPD officers, and he's a top Deutsche Bank executive. He alleged that police manufactured a report that he was snarling and thrashing, and told the officers that he had ingested bath salts. He's saying that the entire report was manufactured. Days before that confrontation with police officers, though, it's now being revealed that he apparently told another officer in a completely different city a story very similar to that, saying he had previously snorted white lightning, a type of bath salts, and that he believed a helicopter had been trailing him. That always reminds me of Goodfellas, the helicopter trailing people. That's according to a Glendale police recording of the conversation. He said, "I know this is going to sound crazy, but I feel like there are people watching me. I feel like there was a chopper. Do you hear a chopper?" In the recording, he said this. "We don't have a helicopter up in Glendale," the officer said. Officials with the LA Police Protective League, which represents officers, are saying that the recording undercuts Mulligan's versions of his altercation, which is now the subject of a $50 million claim that has been filed with the city, which is kind of a precursor to a lawsuit. Mulligan alleged, and this is an incredible story, that officers dragged him to a motel, threatened to kill him if he left, and when they discovered he'd escaped, they beat him so badly that he suffered 15 fractures to his nose and needed a ton of stitches. This is an incredible guy here who seems to be, he's really living it up. I mean, what a life this guy is involved in.
So what's going to happen here?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen. It seems really like this guy is completely out of it. But of course, this is all alleged, and we have to see when the facts come through. Later, I just don't even know how do you even get into a situation where you're telling different police in different cities that you're snorting bath salts? Like, how does that even happen?
If you're snorting bath salts,
that's how it happens.
Yeah, there it is.
Mulligan said he'd snorted bath salts at least 20 times, but as of the day he talked to the police, he hadn't used any for about 2 weeks. And then on the recording, he says, "How long does this stuff stay in your system, man? How's it legal?"
I think it's fair to say he's definitely using some type of drugs.
At least he didn't eat anyone's face, even though, remember, the Miami face eater who was thought to be on bath salts
only had
marijuana in his system. Interesting
Unless
stuff.
it was something else that we couldn't test for.
Very weird story. We're going to keep watching it. There's an individual named Luis Ortiz, okay? He's an unemployed Puerto Rican man from the Bronx, and he looks a lot like President Obama. And he's actually doing this thing, the New York Times profiled him, where he is basically hanging out in New York City in Manhattan, and people can take pictures with him, and he's dressed like Obama, he kind of talks like Obama. It's incredible. I want to play just a little bit of the New York Times profile of Luis Ortiz, Bronx Obama.
Y'all took a picture with the president.
There's one more like this. Superheroes, yes. Yes, we can.
Nice.
Come get your picture with the president today. Pictures with the president today.
It's just so normal to see my face because I look at it every day in the mirror, and to see people react the way they react, it just freaks me out sometimes. Like, what the hell is wrong with everybody? It's just me. But it's not just me, it's me and him. Him and I. The king and I. Why, oh why?
Oh, that chopper down shit right there. Thank you. Hugs are free. Hugs are free.
He even has the same posture as the president.
Yeah, it's really pretty incredible when you see the guy. You know, when I first started watching, it's a very short video. I encourage you to watch it. It's 5 minutes or so on the New York Times. Just Google Bronx Obama New York Times. I didn't really think he looked that much like the president.
Until he does it, he does the thing.
When he shaves and he gets dressed and he adopts the voice and the posture, it's really quite remarkable. And when you look at just a picture doesn't do it justice. You really have to see the video of it. This reminded me, of course, of the fact that Lewis's dad is incredibly reminiscent of comedic actor Eugene Levy, also known from our generation as Jim's dad from American Pie. He's had a number of situations where he is mistaken on the street for Eugene Levy.
Recently, he went on a cruise, and everyone thought he was Eugene Levy. Like the waitress, like some people, he actually tells them he's Eugene Levy. And
really?
Other times, he tells them he's his brother.
Do they wonder why, instead of speaking with kind of a Jewish delivery, he has an Iranian accent?
I don't know. When you're on a cruise ship, you've probably had a few drinks.
All right. We got to do a side-by-side and show people what we're talking about. Lewis's dad, reminiscent of Eugene Levy. Incredible. Let's go to your email. On Ben Stein going on Fox News and saying, hey, rich people have got to pay more taxes. Ben Stein has just regained a lot of my respect. He can say what he wants about evolution now because at least he's meeting the rest of us halfway, those that live in the real world and not some la-la land. Absolutely.
Right.
On Ann Romney comparing being a Mormon missionary to being in the military, which I found very offensive. I don't know the whole story, and I'm in no way a Romney supporter or even an Obama supporter, but I feel she's trying to say that they can sometimes teach some of the same values. Not that they are necessarily the same. It seems it's taken a little bit out of context. She knew what she was trying to say, but brought her point across poorly. That's, of course, the answer from Republicans every time they say something offensive. It was simply misunderstood, or they made the point in a not ideal way.
And not that things aren't always offensive and not misunderstood. Sometimes things come out the wrong way and are misunderstood.
Sure, sometimes it does happen.
I don't
Just
think
not
that's
every
the case
time.
here.
Yeah. And another email about this. Remember, this is the same woman who baptized her dead father, who was an atheist during his life. If she's willing to do that to her own father, I don't think we should expect any kind of decent action out of her. Interesting, referring to, of course, the posthumous baptisms common to the Mormon faith.
Good point.
And on third parties. Yesterday I talked a lot about third parties being involved in debates, etc. A listener named David wrote me a great email saying, rather than by going by polls or popularity or fundraising, which are invariably linked to media coverage, the best method for who should be in the debates is based on electoral votes. If a candidate is on enough state ballots to reach 270, potentially, they should be allowed in the debates. It narrows the field to 4, maybe 5 candidates. It makes sure that money and pre-debate polls don't matter. If the person has a possibility of winning, they have that infrastructure. I agree with this. If you are actually on enough ballots to get 270 electoral votes, maybe that's the way to determine whether you should be in the debates.
Then you have to get into who's deciding if you go on those ballots at all, and you're getting into a whole nother...
That's well established. State by state, based on getting a certain number of signatures and getting on before the deadline, that's very, very well established already. And it does take money out of it, at least to a certain extent.
But still, I mean, getting those signatures and getting people aware of what's going on still will probably rely on media coverage.
It may, but it can just really depend on the ground game. I like this. I like this idea. We're going to talk about this way more after the election. Join us on the bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. But get the bonus show. Lewis hosts it. It's great.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.